clear that there was a handful of folks at the top of the Biden administration and Biden White House that had been around him for decades, where all of that information funneled. So I mentioned before, there are approximately 25 senior White House staffers that have the rank of assistant to the president. Those are the highest White House staffers. I would bet that only a handful of them ever interacted with President Biden on a daily basis. The rest of them had their communications funneled through other people. If the press secretary, the communications director, whose job it is to speak on behalf of the principal in lieu of them being able to talk or communicate, don't have access to those individuals at the senior-most level, then what good are they? And I would argue that while many times we heard people in the press and on the left accuse the Trump White House of quote-unquote lying, for them to go out there and talk about the president's stance on issues, what President Biden thought or didn't think on a personnel issue, a policy issue, when in fact they had never spoken to him, is in fact the epitome of lying.
One of the most consequential actions or inactions of the Biden presidency during 4 years was his failures to secure our southern border and to deal with illegal immigration. I have in my hand examples of the Biden immigration proclamations and executive orders, and there are a lot of them, as you know. They also include things like granting temporary protected status to large populations of immigrants, particularly from countries in Central America, rescinding Trump administration policies when it came to enforcing our laws at the border, granting parole, which is essentially a permission slip to enter the country in a way that would otherwise be illegal. And Mr. Chairman, I'd ask unanimous consent that this document be made part of the record as an example of the sort of consequential border security and immigration related measures that President Biden purported to sign.
Without objection. Mr. Wald, I do want to follow up on a couple of things with you and Mr. Harrison and also Mr. Spicer. Under the Presidential Powers Act, we could have a special access request, correct, to the archivist to find out what assent was actually given by Joe Biden on the auto pen. Is that your understanding?
If they kept records,
right.
Yes.
Right. Well, I think that will be something we will be pursuing. Professor Harrison, I wanted to ask you, sort of on the Article 1 branch's role, and I think I understand your concern when you say the president could do something. You're dealing with sort of a separation of powers issue is sort of what I'm reading into that. So the Article 1 branch can impeach for high crimes and misdemeanors. Should the Constitution be amended, in your view, to deal with this incapacitation? So impeachment would be a vehicle beyond just the 25th Amendment, but impeachment would be a vehicle to deal with these issues.
Senator, there's a long-standing question about whether impeachment is appropriate for inability. There's been questions right at the beginning of the Republic about a couple of judges who were in very poor shape. Not that they'd committed crimes; they were impeached and removed, and there were doubts as to whether impeachment was appropriate for that because there was their problem was age and inability. So you're absolutely right that there's a doubt right now whether the impeachment process, and it goes back a long, long way, whether the impeachment process is a way of dealing with inability as opposed to misconduct. It's clearly primarily directed at misconduct, and I think that if members of Congress are thinking about an additional constitutional amendment, and maybe they should be, they should think both about adapting the impeachment process to inability, which, as I say, right now it's not clear it's properly used in those situations, or creating yet some other political process to deal with presidential inability if lawmakers think that the political process that's in Sections 3 and 4 of the 25th Amendment is inadequate. The last thing I'll say, just as a policy matter, and this is not speaking on the legal question, I do think it's important that any decision about presidential inability remain something that's decided by politically accountable people, that it's treated as a political decision. It can't just be a technocratic decision.
Mr. Spicer, you've criticized the corporate media and legacy media folks for sort of lying down here or being complicit because of their, whether it's Trump derangement syndrome or whatever the reason was. Who specifically do you think gets a gold star for lying most profusely and just sort of continuing to cover this up over the years?
Sir, that would be like a photo finish. There'd be a lot that would probably right there at first place. They're all culpable. I mean, I read some of the headlines to the committee earlier, the Washington Post, CNN, NBC, where they, without evidence, to use their phrase, went after President Trump's physical and mental acuity, and yet failed to ask similar questions of the White House press office publicly. They failed to cover the stories. I don't think that there's a winner. I think they're all losers.
Thank you. And then we'll sort of wrap up here with Professor Harrison and Mr. Wold. So moving forward, we mentioned maybe possibly amending the Constitution or further exploring whether incapacitation is an impeachable, if impeachment's a remedy. What other, in your experience, what other things moving forward could be done to make sure that this scenario that we saw play out over the last 4 years never happens again?
Senator, I think the most important thing that can be done is something you're doing right now, which is draw public attention to this problem, and so give presidents an incentive to take steps that will reassure the people that they are sound and able to perform their functions.
Mr. Wald?
I would agree with the professor and just add that there should be some accountability for the staffers and the officers of the United States who acted to conceal and to cover up the president's incapacity from the American people. One other issue that's tied up in sort of this bundle of incapacity, impeachment, is also succession. And that's something so many have written about extensively over the years. We are very blessed that we have never had a double vacancy with the president and the vice president, either because of terror attack or misconduct. That's something that legal scholars have said for many decades, that Congress really has to work on that. And I would add, yes, in fact, that's something you all should take up with some seriousness.
May I say spontaneously, yes, please?
Okay. Well, I want to thank the witnesses for your testimony here today. Written questions for them may be submitted for the record until June 26th at 5 p.m. And with that, this hearing is adjourned. Thank you.
I was pushing out by the fact that she's like, oh, I see. And it couldn't really be anything. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Right. Second. Please have one question. That's nothing compared to the lines is oh no, she didn't take that. We already coordinated. We're not. No. Okay. Okay. So sorry. He hit it back and then took it. He said he needed it. So all those extraordinary. I'm just wondering. I said this. About not treating. Yeah, I literally just saw him.
I decided about Saturday though. Psycho on the lawn and saying look like a side.
Oh, okay.
Where have you been?
He said he needed to try it.
Solar spot, house it to city, and then the week before, now like, oh, we're moving it, and then the rest of it.
Oh.
So, are you guys not providing drinks? Right? Did I provide my own drinks? Right, which I kind of like.
Doing marathon. Monday and Tuesday.
No, I'm not agriculture.
To bring back.
Yeah, I'm like a 4-minute drive from the east.
So I was really calling yesterday morning.
The east side of the downtown area. So that's a good spot.
That's the thing with it. I was traveling.
How far drive is that in? So without traffic, 20 minutes. With traffic, I mean,
Going out to the lake.
so
Cincinnati,
that, like, I leave like at 9:30,
really far away.
an hour. But it's longer, obviously, though, if you're going during rush hour. Like during I mean, also though, like if I take the metro, like I had a window. What's kind of odd is East Coast Church metro lot fills up every day at like 7:30. So go to West Coast. Like on Fridays and like weekends and stuff.
I don't know. All I know is
The train ride though, if I take the train. From like under 30 minutes.
yeah, that's not bad at all. Go, Dave.
House about. I mean, that's long-term thoughts. Oh. Your clients. That's not the norm. Grass for
You want to do something? I like Northern Virginia.
No, he's no. The hill is from like Montgomery County
and Montgomery County.
Joe lived up in Rockville and it's,
And then, like,
if I took you the red line right now, like, if you have to make that drive, it is impossible.
because I was in
There's no highways. So that's the difference. The highways.
yeah, that was just through that. But I'm just, I'm gonna use it.
Oh, okay.
So that's another lot. Yeah. Around the cross. Whole branch.
Oh, I think oh, we're back.
It's north, I think, near Dulles.
Oh, yeah.
There's one at Dulles.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. On Cats yeah.
Might not have a politics that is notable right now, simply because there's a number of Republicans who got House of Representatives to the Senate and certain changes that made the bill exclude them from voting in favor of it. Here's the comments that he made.
That's like all the way down here. That's not at all neutral.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Okay, I think that's on, PRB.
Yeah, it is.
At one point, I was working
Many days.
We put it this way, it's such a slow active, you can't even test on it.
Practically and no.
Oh, okay.
We're not allowed to.
It's hard to beat up.
I know, I'm thinking of like your dad's cats. I thought you guys had.
Sorry, my dad's 6'6", I've got a little bit of height.
Yeah. No, it's like the same with my dog.
Yeah, he's hatching out like night.
Wow.
But he's had a
No sign of death.
one day, a week ago.
Oh, hey, it'll be a long day. I mean,
Like a
started
snake.
at midnight, I ended at 9 last night.
My sister's like, listen, like, I have them to let me down.
We didn't sing or do a whole lot. I'm gonna bring it back.
Out of like another cat.
I'm watching.
And then like the time. Now I can get these.
Yeah, it's like, right. Yeah. But basically, if something's going on, the Department of Defense, like a lot more international, they follow these places that are going on, and if there's higher than like so there was like some moments of high activity yesterday. Yes.
You're gonna have to change your video.
Guys, we're posting like we're gonna have for dinner. So our life that means deployment. Sorry guys. Well, I'm wondering if it's that, or was it all ranches, or just because Army? I'm like, it could have been their anniversary. But I'm like, some of it was that, but there's some stuff that's not that. Yeah.
Well. There we go.
Yeah.
So listen, we'll get this Ukraine thing wrapped up in a day. Oh, no, master negotiator. Sucked into this and so many other things.
I mean, if I get the battery for the, I've got a second camera, I can take it like that, put it on a pad. It's like 25
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just in half battery, you can make it much lighter.
Okay.
Another camera. That
And
might be the
that's
key.
late, and I don't really, this is, I don't even need this really in shape, and I don't really think I need this.
Yeah, if it's what you have to do before, it's the same thing. Right.
Yeah, they can see. Tomorrow, right? Yeah, I'm doing a VP, so. Looks like it's, well, Sam doing it. We had one last week, but we canceled. And, this, we have to go to, they canceled this again. I need to pick up some more work, and I think you need some other. No, I'm taking it like I used to. I like sleeping in my own bed.
You know what?
I don't even know how.
Brains.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the girls have already grown up, you know. So.
You can never do it.
It's not even
No, that's
I've got one who lived here in Arlington, married in the other one in San Antonio. Not enough kids. One in San Antonio, not very. We just went to, took everybody to Grenada a month ago. And her boyfriend, we knew this was going to happen. She didn't, but I got engaged. That was nice. We had a great time. But things like, he's the airport. Oh, like Sable and I were letting me in. It's got a, till December, I think, he finishes his degree in cybersecurity. I mean, it's a decision. I'm kind of on the fence for it. If he does another 10 years, get benefits for life and all that. But is Garrett worth it? I don't know. In this day and age, I don't know. Big market in the private sector for his skill sets.
Who's doing that level?
We're calling it.
I didn't watch any of it, but
This daughter's gonna be 39 in the year. The youngest daughter's 21.
Where's
My
he?
oldest two, my two oldest girls, they both have. Oldest one has 3 daughters, and then the second daughter is, the second one. Second one lives in Fred. Worried about birthday party on last Saturday, which is wonderful. My oldest daughter's down in North Carolina, so we come here at the beach sometimes. It's some little school, it's just west of Winston. I mean,
Yeah.
it's nice down there, but it's like now he's probably moved to some sort of area.
Moving.
He just got a gun. What's the name of the school down there? Cincinnati. Anyway, he's a real man. Runs business stuff. Now you switch companies and they're going to somewhere in the southeast. This Capitol Hill, that would be nice, because that would be like 4 hours away.
Exactly. These are on the East Coast.
Yeah.
My brother got hit. We have a position upstairs, in Russell. We have a lot of position, like 24/7. We just plug them in, plug them out. Whatever it is.
County just walk on the elevator with the light.
Oh. What do we do with the fire?
the president need to have more discretion.
You stop with the
Senator
camera.
Key, to the cameras.
He's on. Probably down inside.
Undermined,
Been a weird day.
it's sort of a spot.
Yeah, my brother got his kids. He has one working in finance in Blackfield. He moved years ago to Charlotte. Listen to you. He's got
145.
Oh, there is.
So we had the hearing today in the Judiciary Committee. I think it was very obvious the Democrats are continuing to ignore what was a real constitutional crisis, which was you had an incapacitated president in office. And the question remains, who was leading the country? Who was making important decisions? They decided not to show up. They decided to ignore it, like they ignored the clear evidence over 4 years. I think it's an embarrassment for them. I guess we shouldn't be all that surprised, but I think it's important moving forward to make sure this never happens again.
Would a preemptive strike on Iran constitute an act of war? Should Congress vote on war powers?
I think the president right now is acting within his clear Article 2 powers. So the president's got a lot of important decisions to make. I trust him to do it. He's reoriented our foreign policy. It's much more aligned with, I think, where the American people are. It's an America-first foreign policy that's very focused on the core national interests of the United States of America. He's also been very clear that Iran should never have a nuclear weapon. I share that belief. And so he's got a lot of important decisions to make in the next few days.
When do you think that he should be making those?
I think he's in that situation right now, and it's clear, you know, having come back from the G7 summit, that he's very focused on this, and I think that's exactly what he should be doing.
On the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, President Trump has kind of issued this threat saying that any Republican senator who doesn't support it won't have much of a career in politics. I mean, do you think if it came up for a vote that it would be able to clear the Senate right now?
I think there's still ongoing discussions among members, which is very natural. I think that the timeline that Senator Thune has set forth is very reasonable and something we can do by the 4th of July, but ultimately get this thing done by the August recess. I think that's a very important timeline for us to keep. But that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be, you know, some changes along the way. For example, I think the idea that you know, the Senate has a very different point of view on the SALT issue than 5 people in the House. That's a very reasonable discussion for us to have. There's a lot of savings to be had. So there's just ongoing discussions there, but I'm confident we'll get there. I got to go.
Thanks, sir. Yeah. I like when you use my
Letterman. Ran him off like a tree in the forest. It was.
My chicken
So
tenders
ran
are
off.
ready. I was really about how
But
much.
he didn't talk. Who? Graham?
Oh, he's like, he's so.
Well, yeah. Right.
it's fun. Well, dumb directory. Literally be like,
A little better rested than yesterday.
you can only be like, okay, like, it's not working. Okay. Like, it's literally like sometimes.
I mean, you know, it's one of many, but that's the idea. This is on Amazon. There are other places have
I
it.
think it's what?
Maybe even CBS.
It's
Did you see the Tucker Carlson?
Tick removal.
Yes, okay, so like my girlfriend Jordan spotted him coming in yesterday. And like, cause like he was up in the rotunda, he looked down, he sees him coming, he's like, and I'm wondering like, all right, you know, what's he doing here? And so then I saw that clip, I'm like, oh, like, well, that's why he was here.
It's especially
Is
good
it
for
Bruce
the
in Russell?
deer ticks because it's so small.
Okay. I thought he was in Jersey.
It's my favorite.
Yeah, it's good. It sounds like there's a little beer pit. I can get 13.
That.
And my second favorite one.
And I've many times, I've found many times it's because I start to have an itch somewhere. And I get suspicious and I have one on my belly. It stays itching sometimes for a while and all, but it's surprised after 3 days. Not that I'm aware of, no bullseye, but that's because it's not 100%. You don't always get a bullseye.
But if you do, then you know.
Usually, I think that's a good indicator. But that's probably the case. Good to get checked out and treated. Sometimes you snap your neck, you get stiff. You pat it for a while. Well,
And then you search Republican Policy Committee.
but I would say when they go out and
TV,
and
and then search Republican Policy.
I was using my temporary, which of course expires after 3 months. But I finally requested replacement.
And not only the numbers of people voted, as how
yeah, well, and just you give yourself a look over. I mean, you can.
see, we didn't realize that they were streaming that.
I have not read it yet, but if I put this question sort of centrally, I am going upstairs to speak to a group of Delaware.
I had to go myself.
There was one day
I mean, if it wasn't
before
Delaware,
we knew like that's like it's an internal cable channel.
He pops his head back
So
up.
we always have it.
We used to have the best,
You wanted
like, a taste of Delaware up in the Russell Rotunda. They have great beer. They have great beer. They have good food, yeah.
Delaware cheese.
pointing at that TV.
Well, then they had the taste of Vermont. They had the taste
Yes, Taste of Vermont. I've been to that one. That's good.
And look at the screen and see who voted which way. Now we can just go to the Disney Channel on Twitch.
What's the fish head? What is the beer? Fish heads. Fish heads?
Yeah, fish head.
Fish heads, yeah. Because it got bought out, I remember, and he was kind of peeved initially until he found out nobody was going to get laid off. And they weren't moving.
What's the cocktail contest they do every year? Like the Maryland Crush versus the Delaware.
Yeah, I'm rarely in there.
Yeah, I haven't done that. But that's a big thing now in Maryland. Everywhere. I was in Ocean City. It was like
Ocean City.
And I had to like hop in, go out, right?
so. I understand. More rain. Let me see it in. There are probably other ones down below too.
There's a tweezer and a puller.
Yeah, they probably have two. But this unit usually it just forces it to pop off because it's like level. It gets underneath of it and it doubles up, and so it forces it out. Forces it out.